a lot has been going on. It gets overwhelming at times, right? And that's what they want. Just a fire hose of atrocities, a way you can't keep up. And they're hoping you'll disengage and tune out. So sometimes I comment, sometimes I don't, but I've never tuned out. And I just don't let it get to me. And I'm always conscious of if it starts to get to me, to back up. And then I dig back in when I can handle it. But I want to talk to you today about something that I think this really boils down to: bullying. People bullying vulnerable people. Now, that can come in many forms. We all know about the school bully, the stereotypical school bully. But it also can happen like on social media. And in our political discourse, it's happening right now. The most powerful man possibly in the world and the richest man in the world are bullying people. And that's the best way I can describe what they're doing. They're taking advantage of vulnerable people and they're punching down. And, I want to tell you a little story. Like, I always thought I took up for someone. I was the guy who tried to step in between if people were fighting when I was in school. I was the peacemaker. And I always felt good about taking up for the vulnerable people, that I was the guy who would step up. And generally speaking, I think I was, but not at any big risk to myself. Like, nobody ever turned around and hit me as a result of my interventions, right? It was all like, based on respect. Okay, we respect you. Maybe I could break up a fight. But when I moved back to New York several years ago, after living in LA for a couple of years and living abroad, I was still kind of new to it. And I remember I went to someone's child's birthday party out in kind of a rough area of Brooklyn. And I was with another friend, a mutual friend of the person we were going. And I remember seeing across the street this couple with two children, one in a baby carriage and one a little guy about 8, 9 years old. It was a young couple. So the baby was screaming, screaming, screaming. You could tell the parents were irritated. And the father was, I don't know any other way to describe him. He looked dangerous. He looked like a thug, like he could be armed. And anyway, for whatever reason, I was just watching him while I was talking to my friend. And, he was obviously getting irritated at the baby. Then he started yelling at his 8 or 9-year-old son. And, my details are a little fuzzy about this situation, but I remember he's like getting in his face, and the kid was just terrified as I would be. And I felt so bad for the kid. And then the guy, I guess, didn't like the lack of response from the kid, and he took off his belt, like he was going to start whipping him right then and there. So the guy I'm with is just kind of ignoring the whole thing, blinders on, which is the New York thing to do. But I'm sitting there looking at it, and I'm not saying anything, but I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. Am I going to sit here and watch this guy beat his kid with a belt? I grew up kind of like that, corporal punishment. But it was in the privacy of our home, and it was with love, right? But this was not love. This was abuse. This was going to be abuse. And I could tell. And I could tell how afraid that kid was. And I felt for him, and I wanted to intervene. Well, the thug looks up, and he sees me looking. And he says some words to which I don't totally recall, but something about mind your own business. You want some of this, blah, 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 blah. I had a choice. Intervene on behalf of that kid and take the wrath on me, or let the kid take the wrath. And I'm so embarrassed and ashamed that I looked away and just minded my own business. He did not end up whipping that kid right then and there. I saw them, they got in the car, but I was so worried about that child when he got home. That has haunted me for years. So I wasn't quite the stand-up guy that I thought I was. Now, that guy could have been armed. He looked like he may have been the kind of guy this was rough, man. This was a rough part of town, of Brooklyn. A part I don't go into very often. And when I do, I'm reminded about how tough of a guy I am not. And it's not Manhattan. It's not Manhattan. You think you're a tough guy in Manhattan? No, you're not. You think you're a tough guy in Tennessee? No, you're not. Though I've seen some really tough stuff in Tennessee as well. I have. But I'm telling you right now, this was rough. And it just haunted me. And I thought about that kid a lot after that. And I hadn't thought about him lately until this. Until Elon Musk and Donald Trump start teaming up to take over USAID and to shut it down. And it cut vulnerable people all across the world off, which means that people are going to die. Now they're saying it's corrupt and it's run by a bunch of radicals. You know, the speech that they always use. They always have an excuse, right? Obviously, this is not the way to do it. They're bullies. I don't think Elon Musk has a conscience. I don't think Donald Trump does. I met Donald Trump. I have not met Elon Musk. I don't think either one of them probably are worth much. And I think that's why they like punching down, because they know deep inside they aren't worth much. You can tell in respect to Ukraine. Donald Trump Jr. mocking Zelensky. Donald Trump Jr. That guy talking bad about someone in Ukraine. Elon Musk has done the same thing. That guy, Skippy, jumping up and down. That nerd. I don't care how much money you have. You could still be a coward. As a matter of fact, maybe you are more of a coward, and the money is a way to try to compensate. So I made up my mind after that haunted me for so long that I would not let that happen to me again. It's not worth it. Now, I could have gotten killed if I'd have intervened, which would have been terrible. I would have been on the front page and I wouldn't have done a lot of things that I've done. I don't want to die for my beliefs. I don't want to die intervening on behalf of someone. I don't want to go to prison because I believe in speaking truth to power. But I am well aware that sometimes those are the consequences that people pay, because I have traveled and I've seen where people have paid those consequences. Many of them, their names were not known. They were thrown in a grave without a name. And guess what? We'll all end up there. We may have a headstone, but we're all going to end up in the grave, and that includes Donald Trump, and that includes Elon Musk. Some will get there sooner than others, but we're all headed to that destination, which is why I can't understand why anyone with that much money and that much power would choose to do something that they're choosing to do rather than to try to make humankind better. They want to increase human suffering, not decrease it. And a message for the evangelical Christians, the 80% of them that voted for Donald Trump. You had an opportunity to elect an actual Christian, Mike Pence, or so he proclaims, and I believe him, much more so than Donald Trump. And yet you chose the bully. Love thy neighbor? I don't think so. I don't think you understand what Christianity is, evangelicals. And I think you are bullies as well. That's why you're all conformist. You like to all get together and bully other people who aren't believing the way you believe, act the way you act. Now, I'm not talking about every Christian, obviously. You can't talk about a group of people like that. But I'm talking about the 80% who voted for Donald Trump, a bully, who, after his election the second time, has increased human suffering already dramatically, along with his best mate, Elon Musk. And I don't see it getting better. So, what are the choices? Well, my choice is I'm going to stand up to bullying. What are you going to do?